Bereshit, or Genesis 30 through 31. And Rahel saw that she bore Yaakov no children. Rahel envied her sister Leah and said to Yaakov, "Give me children, or else I'm going to die." And Yaakov's displeasure burned against Rahel, and he said, "Am I in the place of Elohim, who has withheld you the fruit of the womb?" And she said, "See my female servant Bilhah. Go into her, and let her bear for me, and let me be built up from her as well." So she gave him Bilhah, her female servant, as a wife, and Yaakov went into her. And Bilhah conceived and bore Yaakov a son. And Rahel said, "Elohim has rightly ruled my case and has also heard my voice and given me a son." So she called his name Dan. And Rahel's female servant Bilhah conceived again and bore Yaakov a second son. And Rahel said, "With great wrestlings I've wrestled with my sister, and I've overcome." So she called his name Naphtali. And Leah saw that she had ceased bearing, and she took Zilpah, her female servant, and gave her to Yaakov as a wife. And Leah's female servant Zilpah bore Yaakov a son. And Leah said, "Fortune comes." So she called his name Gad. And Leah's female servant Zilpah also bore Yaakov a second son. And Leah said, "I'm happy, for the daughter shall call me happy." So she called his name Asher. And Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest and found love apples in the field, and brought them to his mother Leah. And Rahel said to Leah, "Please give me some of your son's love apples." But she said to her, "Is it a small matter that you've taken away my husband? Would you also take away my son's love apples too?" And Rahel said, "Therefore, let him, Yaakov, lie with you tonight for your son's love apples." And when Yaakov came out of the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, "Do come in to me, for indeed I've hired you with my son's love apples." And he lay with her that night. And Elohim listened to Leah, and she conceived and bore Yaakov a fifth son. And Leah said, "Elohim has given me my hire, because I have given my female servant to my husband." So she called his name Issachar. And Leah conceived again and bore Yaakov a sixth son. And Leah said, "Elohim has presented me with a good present. Now my husband's going to dwell with me, because I've borne him six sons." So she called his name Zebulun. And afterward she bore a daughter and called her name Dinah. And Elohim remembered Rahel, and Elohim listened to her and opened her womb. And she conceived and bore a son and said, "Elohim has taken away my reproach." So she called his name Yosef and said, "Yehovah has added to me another son." And it came to be, when Rahel had borne Yosef, that Yaakov said to Laban, "Send me on my way to go to my own place and my land. Give me my wives and my children for whom I've served you, and let me go. For you yourself know my service which I've done for you." And Laban said to him, "If I found favor in your eyes, please stay, for I have diligently watched that Yehovah has blessed me for your sake." And he said, "Name your wages, and I give it." Yaakov said to him, "You know I've served you, and how your livestock has been with me. For the little you had before I came has increased greatly, and Yehovah has blessed you since my coming. But now, when am I to provide for my own house too?" And he said, "What do I give you?" And Yaakov said, "Give me not. If you do this for me, I shall again feed and guard your flocks. Let me pass through all your flocks today, removing from there all the speckled ones, and the spotted sheep, and the black ones among the lambs, and the spotted and speckled among the goats. And this shall be my wages. And my righteousness shall answer for me in time to come, when you come concerning my wages. Everyone that's not speckled and spotted among the goats and is black among the lambs, it's stolen if it's not with me." And Laban said, "See, let it be according to your word." And on that day he set aside the male goats that were speckled and spotted, and all the female goats that were speckled and spotted, every one that had some white in it, and all the black ones among the lambs, and gave them into the hand of his sons. And he put 3 days' journey between himself and Yaakov fed the rest of Laban's flocks. And Yaakov took for himself rods of green poplar, and of the almond, and chestnut trees, and peeled white strips in them, and exposed the white which was in the rods. And he set the rods which he had peeled before the flocks in the gutters, in the watering troughs where the flocks came to drink. And they conceived when they came to drink. So the flocks conceived before the rods, and the flocks brought forth streaked, speckled, and spotted. And Yaakov separated the lambs and made the flocks face toward the streaked, and put the black in the flock of Laban. But he did put his own flocks by themselves, and did not put them with Laban's flock. And it came to be, whenever the strong ones of the flock conceived, that Yaakov placed the rods before the eyes of the flock in the gutters, and they would conceive among the rods when they drank. But when the flocks were weak, he did not put them in. So the weak ones were Laban's, and the strong ones Yaakov's. Thus the man increased very much, and had many flocks, and female and male servants, and camels and donkeys. Genesis 31. And he heard the words of Laban's sons, saying, "Yaakov has taken away all that was our father's, and from what belonged to our father. That's where he's made all his wealth." And Yaakov would look at the face of Laban and see it was not towards him as it was before. And Yehovah said to Yaakov, "Return to the land of your fathers, to your relatives, and I am with you." And Yaakov sent and called Rah'el and Le'ah to the field, to his flock, and said, "I see your father's face, that it's not towards me as it was before, but the Elohim of my father has been with me. And you know, I've served your father with all my strength. Yet your father has deceived me and changed my wages 10 times. But Elohim did not allow him to do evil to me." When he said this, "The speckled are your wages," then all the flocks bore speckled. And when he said this, the streaked are your wages," then all the flocks bore streaked. So Elohim has taken away the livestock of your father and given them to me. And it came to be at the time when the flocks conceived that I lifted my eyes and looked in a dream and saw the rams which leaped upon the flocks were streaked, speckled, and mottled. And the messenger of Elohim spoke to me in a dream, saying, Yaakov. And I said, Here I am. And he said, Lift your eyes now and see, all the rams which leap on the flocks are streaked, speckled, and mottled. For I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. I am the El of Beth-el, where you anointed the standing column and where you made a vow to me. Now rise up, get out of this land, and return to the land of your relatives. And Rah'el and Le'ah answered and said to him, Do we still have any portion of inheritance in our father's house? Are we not reckoned by him as strangers? For he has sold us, and also entirely consumed our silver. For all the wealth which Elohim has taken from our father is ours and our children's. Now then, do whatever Elohim has told you. So Yaakov rose and put his sons and his wives on camels. He drove off all his livestock and all his possessions which he had acquired, his property of the livestock which he had acquired in Padan Aram, to go to his father Yitzhak in the land of Canaan. And when Laban had gone to shear his sheep, Rahel stole the house idols that were her father's. And Yaakov deceived Laban, the Aramean, because he did not inform him that he was about to flee. And he fled with all he had, and he rose up and passed over the river and headed toward the mountains of Gilead. And on the third day, Laban was told that Yaakov had fled. Then he took his brothers with him and pursued him for 7 days' journey and overtook him in the mountains of Gilead. But in a dream, by night, Elohim came to Laban the Aramean and said to him, Guard yourself, that you do not speak to Yaakov, either evil or good. Then Laban overtook Yaakov. Now Yaakov had pitched his tent in the mountains, and Laban with his brothers pitched in the mountains of Gilead. And Laban said to Yaakov, What have you done that you deceived me and driven my daughters off like captives and taken them as with the sword? Why did you flee secretly and deceive me and not inform me? And I would have sent you away with joy and songs, with tambourine and lyre. And you did not allow me to kiss my sons and daughters. Now you've been foolish to do this. It is in the power of my hand to do evil to you. But the Elohim of your father spoke to me last night, saying, Guard yourself that you do not speak to Yaakov, either good or evil. And now you've gone, because you greatly long for your father's house. But why did you steal my mighty ones, the idols? And Yaakov answered and said to Laban, Because I was afraid, for I said, Lest you tear your daughters away from me. With whomever you find your mighty ones, don't let him live. In the presence of our brothers, see for yourself what is with me, and take it with you. For Yaakov did not know that Rahel had stolen them. And Laban went into Yaakov's tent, and went into Leah's tent, and into the tents of the 2 female servants, but he did not find them. And he came out of Leah's tent and entered Rahel's tent. Now Rahel had taken the house idols and put them in the camel's saddle. She sat on them, and Laban searched all about the tent but did not find them. And she said to her father, Let it not displease my master that I'm unable to rise before you, for the way of women is with me. And he searched but did not find the house idols. And Yaakov was wroth and contended with Laban. And Yaakov answered and said to Laban, What is my transgression? What is my sin that you have hotly pursued me? Now that you've searched all my goods, what have you found of your household goods? Set it here before my brothers and your brothers, and let them decide between the two of us. These 20 years I have been with you. 20 years, and your ewes and your female goats have not miscarried their young, and I have not eaten the rams of your sheep. That which is torn by beasts I did not bring to you. I myself bore the loss of it. You required it from my hand, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. Thus I was. By day the heat consumed me, and by frost the night, and my sleep fled from my eyes. These 20 years I've been in your house. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your flock, and you changed my wages 10 times. Unless the Elohim of my father, the Elohim of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had been with me, you would now have sent me away empty-handed. Elohim has seen my affliction and the labor of my hands, and rendered judgment last night. And Laban answered and said to Yaakov, These daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and this flock is my flock, and all that you see is mine. But what shall I do today to these, my daughters, or to their children whom they have borne? And now come, let us make a covenant, you and I, and it shall be written as a witness between you and me. So Yaakov took a stone and set it up as a standing column. And Yaakov said to his brothers, Gather stones. And they took stones and made a heap, and they ate there on the heap. And Laban called it Yegar Sahadutha. But Yaakov called it Galed. And Laban said, This heap is a witness between you and me today. That is why it is called Galed. Also Mitzpah, because he said, Yahovah, watch between you and me when we are out of each other's sight. If you afflict my daughters, or if you take other wives besides my daughters, although no man is with us, see, Elohim is a witness between you and me. And Laban said to Yaakov, See this heap, and see this standing column which I have placed between you and me. This heap is a witness, and the standing column is a witness, that I do not pass beyond this heap to you, and you do not pass beyond this heap and the standing column to me for evil. The Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Nahor, and the Elohim of their father rightly rule between us. And Yaakov swore by the fear of his father Yitzhak. And Yaakov slaughtered a slaughtering on the mountain, and called his brothers to eat bread. And they ate bread and spent the night on the mountain. And Laban rose up early in the morning and kissed his sons and daughters and blessed them. And Laban left and returned to his place.